Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Hands on SAP Dev, episode 37, 38th episode of our little get together. Here I am. It's a lovely morning actually. It's the sun. This sort of late September, mid-late September sun. I just love because it's just so the colour in the light is so beautiful, but also it's quite low. So I've had to close the blinds a little bit, so it's a little bit dark in here. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to see the screen. So, but I think you can see me. I'm just looking up there, and I think everything is okay. Welcome, Some Programming Dude, Napheat, Srikanth, Roberdino, Enno, Robin, Gregor. Good morning. I know I'm sort of, calling some of you by your Twitter handle, some of you by your name. But there we go. That's random for you. So welcome. It's Friday. Tech Ed starts next week. I'm going over there on Sunday. Looking forward to seeing maybe some of you there. Maybe if not there, then in Barcelona. Maybe if not in Barcelona, then in Bangalore. So yeah, awesome. And thank you so much for joining. So I've got my coffee here. Michelle just came back from Spain. She brought some coffee beans with her, so I just dialed those in, as it were. Quite an interesting flavour. I put a lot of almond milk in this actually, so it's masking that flavour a little bit. But anyway. So I'm drinking it. In fact, that reminds me. I'm enjoying it from my. Can you see the video? Enjoying it from my awesome SAP Coffee Corner radio podcast mug, as usual. I think the team have just put out another episode, which you should listen to. I think it's like a pre-tech episode. I've got some water as well, actually. And talking of their podcast, which is excellent, I've created one myself. I'm going to flip to the main scene here in OBS, so that should flip over to the my display. There we go. Yep. No, I didn't notice actually. I just noticed. Did nobody shout before? Is the text of the stream chat is too large, isn't it? Let me just figure out what's going on there. Let's just make that a little bit smaller first of all. There we go. That should be better, right? Is that better? I think it should be. Yeah, let's just flick that into place. There we go. Yes, almond milk. Hi, Harlot. Almond milk. You're not keen on it? Not in the other scene? Okay, yes. The other scenes, the first scene when there's no picture of me at all, and the second scene, which is like the chat scene with my video, that's okay as well. It's just this one, the main display, wasn't just moving things around. Anyway, I think that's better. So yes, let me just explain. I'll put that on this side so you can see it a little bit better. I had a desire, an itch that I wanted to scratch, which was so much good stuff out there, so many articles and blog posts being published all the time, but also sort of historic ones as well, that I have on my reading list, but never I'm going to get around to reading them all. So what I said was, it'd be really nice if I could find a podcast where blog posts and articles were just read out, just sort of, in lieu of me reading them myself. I just want somebody to read them out to me so I can, listen to them while I'm walking or getting the bus or whatever, maybe even running. I don't listen to anything when I'm running usually, but I would do, I think. Couldn't find a podcast, so I thought, you know what, I'm going to do it myself, because I think other people might be in the same boat. I just noticed actually, so Robert, thank you for the comment. I love me some SAP Dev Aloud. So yeah, this is a new podcast. Let me just put that in the chat. In fact, there we go. I don't have the chat thing here, but you can get the URL from there. It's basically anchor.fm tech-aloud. It's using the same hosting service that Simon and Jacob are used to start out their Coffee Corner Radio podcast as well. And it's really good, really useful, really easy. It like within literally 30 seconds of registering on the website, I clicked a button and I was recording my first episode. So I've just recorded one this morning, actually, on CAP. And what I've recorded was the documentation. Again, I think there's something wrong with my laptop. When I run this now, I'll tell you what I think it is in a minute, is the about page of the Capire documentation. So Capire, as you can see in the title here. Thanks, Gregor. Yes, thank you, Gregor. That's an introduction to the whole podcast idea, and it's also got a link to how to subscribe. Thank you, Gregor. That's super. So I've recorded this page, which is quite a long page. It's got all these different sections in it, and it hopefully gives we all know really a lot of this stuff, but it gives newcomers a general sort of 10,000 feet view of the philosophy and the design and the goals of CAP. To be honest, even if you know, and I know a lot of, I think all of us here know some bits about CAP, but I think it's still worth listening to. I learned some things as I went as well. By the way, when I record these, I don't practice. That the whole idea is that I want it to take as little time as possible out of my sort of working day. So I just go to a page, press the record button, and start reading. And some things I've not read before, so I make some mistakes sometimes. The idea is to just get things out there rather than get things out there that are polished. So published this morning, the latest episode. I read out this thing here. So that's that. In fact, one thing I wanted to show you was that I've got this little, I'll open it up in a new window actually. I've got this little GitHub project that I created to help myself manage the recording of episodes. What am I going to read? I think I'll read that one. Okay, I'll do that one next and everything. So I've got this GitHub project where I have issues, and each issue is basically, I create an issue for each of the things that I want to read. There they are, and they actually then appear through the GitHub project idea, and I use automation as well. If you want to mess about with GitHub project automation, we could do that on another maybe Wednesday live stream. It's awesome. The sort of automation of tasks and then they appear in different columns here automatically. And I had a quick conversation with John Patterson, Ep.37 on Twitter, a friend of mine and many of ours as well over in Oz. And I said, look, submit an issue. As in, if you want something read out and it's worthwhile, submit it, and I'll consider it and get around to recording it. So, if any of you here on the thanks Gregor, yeah, super for helping. Yeah, there's the open GitHub project. So if you have got a request, I'm not going to say I'm going to do all the requests, but if you have got a request, create an issue. And the general idea of the issues is that what you've got to do, otherwise I will reject it, is the issue title is the title of the article or blog post, dash the author, and usually the author's available, dash the date. And if the date is a specific date, put the specific date. If it's just in a month, then put the month. If it's if there's no date, then find out what the year was and then just put the year. And then in the body of the main comment to the issue, just put the URL, and that's it. So let's see how it goes. Let's do this sort of collaboratively, we'll see. So there we go. That is the Tech Loud podcast. I think I've 10 items so far. The general idea is that I want to do no more than really 10 minutes. Some exceptions, as in today's was a little bit of an exception. It's a little bit longer than that, but there we go. Okay, so where were we? Well, where we were last time, which was Wednesday last week, because Friday I was in Riga giving a code jam with Max, was that we were looking at Gregor's fork of Christian Georgi's bookshop demo, right? Oh, Robert, will your podcast have guest speakers? You know what? When I was talking about submitting things to be read out, I suddenly thought maybe that's an idea as well. That's definitely an idea that I think we should consider. Yeah. I think why not? Why not? Let's have this as a collective, collaborative thing. Scaling is something I personally don't do very well. There's only one of me. So let's have a think about how best we might be able to do that. Whether I can give, for example, certain people access to this, or whether it's just simply, you make an MP3 file available somewhere for me and I'll load it into Anchor, etc., etc. Or even attach the MP3 to the issue. Yeah, let's, or just reading their own blog posts, I think you mean. I think reading an entire blog would take too long, right? Ha ha ha. Yes, there we go. Yeah, interesting. Great. This is community spirit at its best. Thanks, Robertino. Okay, so where we were last time was that we were looking at the bookshop demo, and in fact, I forked Gregor's repo. GitHub.com qmacro bookshop demo. There it is. And what I did, I forked it explicitly for one reason, which was to create a branch called value help. Okay, and that branch value help was me attempting to cut down as much as possible, although as it turns out we can cut down even more, the amount of, well, let's call it noise, the amount of stuff that's floating around in this project, to allow us to focus on what we need to look at to find out how these annotations work. Specifically, what is the thing that's driving the value help, the F4 help, as it were, as us ABAP folks, I guess, call it. What's driving that F4 help on the currencies? So I'm sure Gregor will very kindly post the URL to this fork of his repo. And what I'll do is I'll clone that right now here, and I'll pull out down that branch, and we'll start looking at it. And I was playing around yesterday. I mean, this is half off the cuff, half sort of live, not live, half sort of making it up as I go along. But I have looked into a few things because I don't want you to just watch me scratching my head. And I found out some really interesting stuff. And I guess one of the things with annotations, and I'd love to, thanks Gregor, superstar. One of the things with annotations is that I don't know very much about them. I'm going to say that out loud. And I've always considered annotations as slightly black magic, or magic, I don't know why I said black magic, white magic. As in, there's these incantations, and I don't know where they came from, and how do you work out what to say and how to say these things. And then on the other side, of course, is these sort of really dry bits of documentation on the vocabularies and everything. And I did mention this before, and I've started to read these vocabularies, these documentations, in conjunction with some of the stuff I'm looking at, and it's starting to slowly make sense. So this is a journey as much for me as it is for you as well. So anyway, let's clone this project here. There we go. I did by mistake once. I found out that you don't have to actually get the .git URL. I think you can even just use the URL of the repo and do that, and it'll still work, right? So if we clone that into Bookshop, but what actually we want is the value help branch, and that's currently on origin. So if we say git checkout, and I've got some alias, by the way, I've got some aliases here. So I think vi.git config. Yeah, so there are my aliases here in my git config file. I have no idea where they came from, but anyway, so checkout and branch and everything. So yeah, it's quite useful. So I can say git checkout value help, and now we've got the value help branch here. Yes, again, another super URL from Gregor. That is a super vocabulary, and we probably will be looking at that later on. There's a person called Ralph Handel who works at SAP, who I think is, Lord of OData and annotations. That's my title I gave to him just now. But I think you'll agree that when you see what he writes, it's like, okay, yes, definitely, I am not worthy. This is amazing stuff. Anyway, so we've got this. Let's just have a quick look for ourselves at what we've got in here. As usual, I'll move again. I'll move this across to here. I'm still using, by the way, my Chunk WM window manager, which is super useful. It may look a little sluggish on the stream, but that's because OBS is taking up most of the CPU. Normally it's fantastic. Yeah, Lupomania, you are on fire. Put yourself out, sir. You are on fire. Yes, definitely. In fact, before we look at it, let's go ahead and run it. npm install. Let's install all the things. And while it's installing, we've got a very simple schema, the books and the authors. Let's make that a little bit bigger. The books and the authors. Nothing special there, apart from we've got here the currency that we're using from SAP CDS Common, and then down here, I've no idea what's not been found here, but anyway. Oh, of course, because we've not. It's still installing, right? It's still installing. See, there's the one advantage of having a slow computer. Again, it's only slow because OBS is just completely making it melt. But we're seeing the results of the install. All right, the install's just finished now, but it was still installing all the node modules. Okay, so if we go back here now, I'm guessing, hopefully, yeah, there we go. Now there's no error because, of course, SAP CDS Common now exists. And I was looking what the install does, and what it does is it creates a node modules folder, creates a .staging folder within that. Why am I saying folder? Directory. .staging directory within that, installs them all, everything in there first, and then it does a switch or something like that. So it didn't exist for a few seconds. That's quite interesting. Anyway, so we've got the books. Chunk WM does not work for Germans. Does not work for die Deutschen. Because Alt L is at, and we need at. Yes, but Chunk WM has a sibling program called SXHKD, the simple hotkey daemon, which is what you use to control Chunk WM. So you can remap anything to whatever you want. So interesting. Maybe when I meet up with you folks at SAP Tech Ed Barcelona, you can show me. Alt L. Do I use Alt L? Yes, of course I use Alt L. Yes. Okay. Keyboard bindings. You can definitely rebind, but yeah, I can understand why Alt L is definitely something you don't want to change. Okay. Good morning, Sumit Kundu. Good morning and welcome. Good morning, welcome. Okay, so we've got the most interesting thing here is we've got this currency property that's being described by currency with a capital C, which is, as we'll see, defined in SAP CDS Common. It's a type, and what it is actually is an association. But we'll come to that shortly. So that's that. We've got this index that just brings everything together. It turns out that we can and should get rid of this to simplify things. Over in the service directory, we've got this really normal looking, no surprises here, service. I've called it main service rather than catalog service. I don't like the word catalog. And we had an app folder as well, directory, where I've reduced it down, so it's still, in its own right, it's still useful in that it shows us the minimum thing we need to build our own app module. So we've got our HTML file with the bootstrap for UI5 and the loading in of the sandbox launchpad and all that stuff, and we've got one tile definition here, which is fine. And then we've got this index.cds with a ton of annotations. Okay, So I've been looking through these annotations, but actually it turns out that while these annotations are super interesting, none of these annotations are what's causing the value help to work. And when you think about it, there's a reason for that, and it's logical. But we'll have a little look at these annotations in a second and what they do, and then we'll get rid of everything. What else have we got in here? We've got our web app itself, and again, there's nothing special in this web app. It's literally a single line component, and then the manifest, it brings in the data model, the OData service, and it's also got the routing and the Fiori elements definitions. We're not going to look at that. And that's it. So if we now run this, in fact, I'm going to use my favorite NodeMon. Is NodeMon installed? I can't remember. Yes, it is installed. NodeMon is in the package.json, is it? That's interesting. Did I put it in the package.json? Yes, I did. Okay, cool. Right. So we're now running this, and we can double check here. Down here, we're bringing in the index.cds from the app folder, and we're bringing in the service definition and the data model. Okay, and we're also, of course, bringing in common.cds because it's referenced in the schema.cds. All good. We understand all that. So if we go now to localhost 4000, we see a little bit bigger. We see two chunks of things. We see our normal friendly, OData service root here. There's the service document that's going to be in there. The metadata document is going to be in there. In fact, if we look at the metadata document, we will see that it's absolutely huge. Look at all that. And the reason why it's so huge is, in fact, it's because of all these annotations. Okay, and it was blinding me. I couldn't see the wood for the trees. There's a phrase in English. It's too much stuff. So I'm going to suggest we reduce all this down to get to the nitty-gritty. And we have here our Fiori.html, and that's served from the app folder. And we can see here that everything's happening. Get app config. We can get the sandbox, the Fiori sandbox configuration, etc., etc. Okay, fine. There's our tile, and we'll click on the tile to bring our web app up, which is this Fiori elements-based web app. And there we have our simple list report. And the thing in question in this particular example was, how does this work? What? How does that work? What's powering that? But it turns out, actually, we get this also even if we use the built-in Fiori elements goodness that's in the CAP engine itself. So if we go to the normal sort of non-app, non-specific thing here, we get something super similar. Now, because of the annotations in the app index.cds that have been loaded, we still get some really interesting filled out list report, but that still works here. Okay. Now, what I think we should do is remove even more from this cut down thing. So if you compare what we've got right now to what Gregor had from his fork, this is a lot reduced, heavily reduced already. But what I want to do, let's actually just kill that for a second. What I want to do is actually, that's very brave, wasn't it? Remove the whole app directory. So all we've got is our DB directory and our service. Okay. So now, in fact, what I want to do as well, because this is really just almost like it sits at the head of the CDS definitions and says, well, we want actually to use schema and service. I think what we'll do is we'll just rename this for a second so it doesn't get pulled in. Okay, so I've just added XXX at the end. And let's now see what gets pulled in. Okay, fine. So as expected, it's only pulling in what index.cds was going to be telling it to pull in anyway in this sense. So, we just removed some more noise from our brains. So now if we go back over here and refresh, let's see what we get. Okay, we get something that is a little bit more what we've been used to seeing in the past. There's nothing, well, first of all, the selection fields here, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 selection fields, and they reflect all the properties in the books entity, right? Let's just have a quick check. In the schema, yeah, we get the 5 properties: ID, title, author, price, and currency. So by default, the list report, if not told anything else, will look at the book's definition, look at the metadata, and then provide a selection field for each one of those. But we also don't get anything in the list report. We get a list report, the actual list or the table with a number of rows, and those, excuse me, those rows reflect the number of books we have. Okay, and I think we did have 5 books, yeah. But we get no columns, and we know already that those columns are determined by some annotations. So what we could do is just add a little bit of annotation. We should maybe create an annotation CDS file. Again, this whole reuse separation of concerns idea that's actually expressed in the CAP documentation that I read out today in Tech Aloud is a beautiful thing, and it's just so powerful but so flexible that sometimes you have to sit down and think about exactly what you want to do, because basically anything is possible. But before we do that, what I want to do is just check here. I mean, I know the answer because I just did it earlier today or yesterday. Does this still work? Yes, it still works, right? So where is that coming from? And of course, now I'm sort of explaining what I found yesterday. It's sort of like, DJ, it's obvious. Why were you such an idiot thinking that it's somehow magic annotations that were related to the app? No. Can anybody guess what is making that work right now, or where the things are that is making this work? Let me know on the channel, because you're all very quiet today. There's a lot of viewers, but very quiet. By the way, 310 followers, that's amazing. I'm just looking up here on my screen there. In fact, yeah, let me just show you behind the scenes. Where's the I'm just looking at a delay of about 10 seconds there. That's behind the scene. That's what I can see on my wall above me. So that's why I'm looking up to see what the chat is. So there we go. Well, Lupomania, yes, SAP CDS Common. Let's have a look in there. I think you might be right. In fact, you are right. So it's really, really important that we embrace SAP CDS Common and everything in it, because we've looked at SAP CDS Common before, but only small bits. And in my mind, at least, it's like, oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there. It looks too complex to dig into, but that's what we're going to do today. MR Maru, or is it Mr. Maru? Pardon the interruption. Was that NetRW file export? Good question. Good question, and welcome as well. That is, it's not even Vim. I mean, what I'm using, this is Vim obviously, but what I'm using is Ranger. So let me quit out of here. I've got a little alias R for Ranger, but you can type it in directly like that, and that will give me this nice little directory and file explorer, and it's awesome. And it's, it's got Vim key bindings, so I would definitely recommend Ranger if you're a command line person like what I am. I'm happy to say that I've convinced. It was quite easy actually. I've convinced my colleague Max Streifeneder. He started to look into using Ranger and Vim and other things as well. Yes, exactly. It does look familiar, and it's pretty awesome. But anyway, yeah, what we'll do is stop using Ranger for a second. We'll just use Vim, because also what I want to show you is I'm using the Fuzzy Finder, FZF, the Fuzzy Finder plugin, Vim plugin. So I can say, for example, schema.cds like that and bring that in there. And what I also want to bring in is common.cds .cds. That's the one there. I'll bring it in a split there. Okay, so that's what we want. Now, in fact, what we'll do instead is something different. So what we're doing here is we're defining a property called currency, and we're describing it using the currency with a capital C, which we're getting. Okay, so if I go to the go to definition there, we're getting from inside of common.cds. Good morning, Ronnie. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome. So by the way, Ronnie, Gregor has taken your URL paste king crown for now. He's doing an awesome job. I know that you help out always when you're here with pasting in URLs to links to things. So thank you, Gregor. But Ronnie, acknowledgement as well. So let me just go back for a second. So we've got this currency definition here, which of course is, we bring it in from here, from sapcds.com. And so if I say go to reference with my, that wasn't what I wanted to do. If I say go to definition rather, we jump to the definition of that. That's using the CDS LSP in my Vim CDS plugin. And you can do that, of course, in VS Code. This is now, if you look at the bottom here, this is now inside of SAP CDS Common. So let's have a look at this. We've got the currency type, and what is it? It's an association. It's a 2-1 association to sap.common.currencies. sap.common.currencies is here. I wonder if I can just let's do that again. If I say, for example, go to definition. Yeah, there we go. Go to definition. There. Oh, bye, Ronnie. Hi, Ronnie. Bye, Ronnie. Nice for you to pop in. That's really cool. That's okay. See you later. Currencies is defined as an entity inside of this context called sap.common. So it's like a namespacey type thing, but you can have multiple contexts in the same file. Normally you would have only one namespace definition in a file at the top. It was a great 2 minutes, Robert. It was a great 2 minutes. Yep. Ronnie said two things within the space of 2 minutes. That's quite a good rate. So inside of sap.common context, we get the currencies. And the currencies, and this is where our background and what we've been looking at earlier in previous episodes really starts to help us understand this. Our currencies entity has been enhanced by, what's this? What's this after a colon here? Okay, we've got a colon, well, let's just do a search. We've got a colon up here as well. Okay, this is after a type definition. But we've also got this colon down on line 17 before our braces, before our block. And that code list, oh, hello, Ronnie, insta cancel a meeting. Ronnie, you're making me dizzy, but welcome back. Welcome back to us figuring out that this code list word is an aspect. Okay, remember where we used the word managed and we've used CUID. These have both been aspects when we added them to the books or the authors or both entity definitions in previous episodes. This is just another aspect, right? Where is this aspect defined? Well, here. Also within the sap.common.context. I suppose it doesn't have to be, but it is. And the code list has got all sorts of bits and pieces, which we'll look at shortly. But the code list itself adds, just like the managed aspect adds created by, modified by, the code list aspect adds just a couple of properties, name and description, right? Anyway, what I think we should do is, rather than try and navigate through this, because there's other stuff referring to code list a little bit further down, I think we should not use SAP CDS Common and have our own reuse library. And we'll copy this in and just get rid of all the other stuff. just so we can understand reuse a little bit better, and we can understand what are the really core, essential, minimum things that we need to make this currency thing work. So what I suggest we do, let's quit out of here actually. If we, why don't we go into DB, and we've removed the index, we'll just remove that completely. We'll say copy node modules SAP CDS common.cds to hands-on common. In fact, let's use an acronym or an abbreviation that I'm suddenly going to make up. Hands-on SAP dev common host common.cds. Okay, good. So let's edit that. Let's get rid of everything that we don't need. There we go. Let's get rid of that as well. Oh, a bit of space though, that's a bit nice. Language, countries, currencies. Now I don't like the way that this has been white spaced here, so let's just have that. That's a little bit better, isn't it? So we can really see it. I'm not going to mess about with the white space in terms of tabs or spaces at the beginning of the line. Let's just align it here. I have noticed that also in an upcoming release of the VS Code extension for CDS, got some awesome pretty print facilities like format code, which will, optionally do that sort of thing. So we've got the key there on its own, and we've got these properties. Oh, hello. What was that then? That was some sort of subscription or something. Plouts. Oh, thank you for following, Plouts. Oh, it says it there. Plouts now following. Thank you very much indeed, and welcome to the live stream. Where were we? Yeah, so we've got some nice things coming up. I'm not sure, if anybody's got the latest CDS extension for VS Code. Does it do it already, or is it not yet there? But it's coming. It's really awesome, and other awesome stuff as well with CDS, with the CDS command line client. Really good. So we got that, and we got this aspect as well. And then outside of this context, we've got all sorts of other stuff we recognize already. So in fact, let's go down here. We're on line 17 now. Let's go further down. There we go. Yeah, let's go down and say 17 to here, delete. And we've got these annotations. We've got annotate SAP Commons here. Okay, let's leave that in, and we'll come back to that in a second. Manage, we don't want managed annotations here. We don't want any of that. And we don't want any of that. We want that one though. Managed, I think that's it. Yeah, so let's get rid of to the end of the file. And let's just move this. That's annoying me. There we go. Right, let's save that. So what we've got here, yes, okay, thanks Gregor for confirming. Yeah, I think maybe TechEd. They're doing some awesome work at the moment, as you can probably imagine, for TechEd. So yeah, maybe it's going to be released then. So, by the way, if you come into TechEd, there is in the developer garage on the show floor, specifically in the app space, a mission that has all sorts of CAP and Cloud SDK goodness. So come down to the app space and try your luck. 6 tutorials. Okay, so this is, I think, all we need for the currency definition. Okay, so before we start digging into this, let's just make sure it works. Okay, so let's just go out of here and then go into what do we want? We want to go into the bookshop. Oh no, not bookshop DB. What am I talking about? Into the schema CDS. Using currency from there? No, using currency from hands-on SAP dev common dot. That's it, actually. There we go. So let's save that, and let's restart. Oh, it's restarting already. I didn't realize I hadn't stopped that. So now the really interesting thing is that we're not like up. In fact, if we go like this, we can see previously. These are the things that were pulled in prior to our changes, of course, it's pulling in SAP CDS Common, but now it's pulling in the service definition, the data definition in schema, and our common. So let's see if that sort of still works. Wow, Gregor, you are seriously on fire. Thank you for that. Complete list of sessions. Yeah, I think it must be Las Vegas. I don't know. Oh, yeah, lots of really cool sessions. Yes, I'd like to attend some of those myself. So we've refreshed. Did we refresh? Did I refresh? Oh, yeah, I've refreshed because that's just started. There we go, yeah. I was still in the buffer scrollback mode of tmux, which I'm also using. So we've got this thing here. We've got the standard selection fields, and this still works. Okay, so we've reduced all the, we got rid of the app directory and all the annotations in there. So let's have a dig in now. Now we know that it's sort of working. Let's have a dig in to what we've actually got in our hands-on SAP Dev Common. Let's go to the definition of currency, which is there. So we know currency is an association to SAP.common.currency. So currencies must be an entity set, which it is, or an entity, I suppose, entity set. It's CDS, it's sort of slightly irrelevant anyway, at this semantic definition layer. And the currency's entity is described by this aspect here, code list. And the code list, we've seen already, is in turn annotated. Now, the annotate SAP common code list with UI identification, name. We've seen UI identification before. That's just like this sort of title thing. So when you're seeing some value from from an entry in the code, anything related to a code list, its name will be the property, or the value of the name property is the thing that's displayed, right? So of course, and we know that name is one of the properties. But more importantly, we've got this second annotation, and these two annotations are sort of a pair. They're not completely inseparable, but I've seen this in my research. I've seen this quite a lot. We have this annotate SAP common code list with at CDS OData value list. What the hell is that? CDS OData value list. Well, did some research, and there are annotations, or an annotation is usually in the form of a vocabulary definition and then an annotation word itself. And what I mean by vocabulary definition is, well, here's an example: at CDS, at UI, at common, at core, at capabilities. Okay, some of the vocabularies are from SAP, and Gregor, you posted a link to the this one, I think it was, wasn't it? Yeah, it's the only thing in my Google history with the word vocab in it. There's SAP UI, but there's also SAP Common. It doesn't really matter right now which one I pick for illustration purposes. And notice there's this person here, Ralph Handel. If you do one thing today, I would suggest it's, stalk Ralph Handel in the wiki, find out what pages he's been involved in, and read them all and learn from them. Look at all that potential goodness there. I have a feeling that some of it will be a little bit dry, but all of it will be awesome and super useful. And these are the things here. So anyway, OData 40 vocabularies to do with UI, communication, common, an SAP code list, for example. Now, I wrote down, there's a couple of things. What was it? Oh yeah, so there's core, and at capabilities. Those two vocabularies are not from SAP. Those are from the Oasis organization. The Oasis organization are the ones that are curating, looking after, in charge of OData, the OData protocol. Thank you again, Gregor. Oh my goodness me. I owe you a beer for all these links and posts and everything. But a proper beer. so you may have to come to Manchester. There's an invite, by the way. So what was I? Yes. Oh, yes. So core and capabilities are from Oasis, whereas other stuff that you see are from SAP. For example, I've written them down as well. UI, common, communication, personal data, analytics. But none of that list doesn't include CDS. So this at CDS, we've seen at CDS before, haven't we? Does anybody remember where we've seen at CDS before? If we have a look at, oh no, we don't want to go there. Let's just open up a second thing here and go into our node modules again, go to SAP CDS Common. There we go, we've seen that in our managed aspect. Okay, CDS on update, CDS on insert. Now these are not really, well, of course they are annotations, but they're sort of not we're definitely not going to drink a beer in one of those. Okay, we're going to drink a beer in a very delicate glass because I'm quite posh. No, I'm just kidding. Any beer in any glass, well, not any beer in any glass will be fine if it's with you, darling. I need more coffee. Or anybody else, of course, for that matter. So we've got this, we've seen it before, CDS on update. Now, I thought, where the heck is this at CDS coming from? So what I did was, oh, in fact, it's there. In fact, grep recursively at CDS node modules. Oh no, that'll do actually. CDS OData. That's a lot of stuff. Where was it? Oh, find node modules. Oh, hello. That was another notification. I shall see it up there soon. Find in node. So go to bookshop. Find in the node modules SAP CDS directory. File exec shows the file name at CDS OData. Yeah, there we go. Throw away those. There we go. There it is. Yes. So in node modules SAP CDS changelog. Okay, if we open up CD bookshops, let's go into there. SAP CDS changelog. We see back in February. Oh, hi Volker, Ep.37. Sorry, I didn't see you come there. Yes, so definitely go to, Volker's doing a talk. Is it in Barcelona or is it in Las Vegas? Or where is it? So let us know, Volker. Put it on the chat. Well, I would love to come and see your session, but I'm not allowed to. I've got to stay on the app space. We've only got a show floor pass. But I might see if I can sneak in. Did I say that live on stream? Maybe nobody's listening. In Barcelona. Okay, cool. And Ronnie, you're giving a talk. Are you giving a talk as well? Yes. My goodness me. This live stream is made up of awesome people. Okay, so where was I? Yes, okay, so alpha support for CDS OData value list. Adding this to CDS auto exposed entities will automatically equip all associations referring to such entities with a corresponding common value list entity. So the way I'm seeing these at CDS vocabulary contextualized annotations is that it's sort of like cap specific. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I see it. And they get translated into, because there's this idea of this abstraction layer where we define in our CDS files, they get translated into this canonical CSN, core schema notation, which then can get compiled CDS compile into various target notations such as EDMX, i.e. OData metadata. So we'll have a look at that in a minute, right? Because I think we should be able to see something there. And the @common value list entity is the thing, if you look at the SAP documentation, is it in there? I can't remember what it was. It will show you that this is the thing that powers, no, it's not there. It's somewhere. This is the thing that powers the annotations that appear in the metadata XML, the EDMX, that drives the value list help, the F4 help for the currency in the Fiori elements. So why don't we have a look to see what the result of this particular line is, because we know that the code list is an auto-exposed thing, because we can see it here, can't we, in line 8, CDS auto-expose. Okay, so it all sort of fits together. So why don't we have a look? I think we're still running. Yeah, we're still running. So let's have a look over here at let's bring up the developer tools anyway. Use large request. I don't want to use large request rows. Let's get rid of that and that. Let's refresh. A little notification there. Enter the, oh, that's right, enter the matrix. Awesome. And also, Unleash Sparrow sharing. Yes, you're talking about the fantastic success of SAP Inside Track Oslo, or rather how you did it and everything, which is really cool. So what are we looking at? Oh yes, this is what I will look at. So let's find, we all know, being au fait with this sort of thing, we all know, of course, that one of the first things that UI5 will do when it's told to create an OData model is go and fetch the metadata. So here's the request to fetch the metadata. So let's have a look at the metadata. Compared to what we saw before, this is a lot shorter, right? We've got the, in our sort of schema, we've got the entity container, and we've got these entity types, we've got authors, and we've got books, and of course we've also got these sort of implicit entity types, books text, because we had, why have we got books texts? Because of the localized property we had in, what was it called? Schema.cds there, this localized thing. So automatically this underscore texts entity gets generated as well. But anyway, that's what, we're not talking about that. We've also got our implicit currencies entity type, which comes of course from our currencies entity here. And because the two properties in the code list aspect that enhances the currencies entity definition are localized, we also get a currencies text thing. So this is super magic. But it's not magic that's impenetrable. If you take the time, as we're hopefully doing today, to dig in a little bit, what I want to do is, personally, but also with you folks, understand everything. And we have to keep digging until we figure out how the different things are connected. So once we get through the entity type definitions in our metadata, what we're left with, and let me just make it smaller just so we can see the scale of it. What we're left with is a page worth of annotations. Let me make it bigger again. Some of these annotations are just sort of labels, okay, and these labels we won't worry about right now. And there, for example, here, I'm randomly falling upon this one here, main service currencies. So we know this is talking about the currencies entity in the main service namespace, which is when we called our service main space in service.cds, didn't we? This UI identification is this. Now, it's definitely also worth digging into how CDS and then the intermediate canonical CSN, which is like a JavaScript objecty style thing, how that translates into EDMX, because there are sort of scalar values, there are values that are effectively arrays, and there are objects, or they're called here, a more old-fashioned word, which I like, records, as in a series of name value pairs. Okay, and of course I guess you can have collections of records as well, you know, just like in JavaScript you can have arrays of objects. Anyway, so the reason why this name thing here is so far down in this XML nest is because, of course, the name property is defined in an array. Okay, so the value of UI identification is an array of things. That's why we have an array, as in a collection in EDMX terms, here. Anyway, that was just by the by. What we've got in terms of currency is we've got a property reference here. So it's a reference to the currency property in the book's entity definition of the main service context. We've got a label, okay, and that label is coming from somewhere. There it is there, annotate currency with title I18N currency. And then we've got this humongous annotation definition here, which is basically the thing that the Fiori Elements list report uses for the selection field to drive that selection. So we've got common.value list. So remember, common is an annotation vocabulary which we can look up after this live stream, because I've just realized it's only 3 minutes to go. Or we could dig into it a little bit further even on the next live stream, let me know, because it's super interesting. And of course, a value list is basically defined as an object, which is the reason why we have this record XML structure here, because a record is basically an object. And if you look in Ralph Handel's OData definition references here, one of them, I'm not going to bore you now with looking for which one it was, I think Gregor posted a link to it before. One of them describes value list in the common vocabulary, and it describes the value for value list, as in what the value list has as a value, as an object, as in curly braces. That translates into this record, and it's of type common.valueList type. By the way, if you saw in Gregor's clone in the app, in the index.cds, we saw in some of the annotations $type : and you can define explicitly types that will then appear like this. So you can drive EDMX based annotations in a more closely related pattern if you want to. Anyway, the value list type describes a number of properties, one of which is label, another of which is basically the entity set, the collection that has the list of possible values, and of course, what is that but the currencies entity set? But perhaps most importantly, it describes the parameters that need to be used on the implicit OData call to say, go and fetch me the possible values when the person does F4 figuratively speaking, of course. And we've got here code and name. Now, remember code and name. If we, let's get rid of that. If we now, let's get rid of that filter, clear all the existing requests, and then just hit the F4. I know it's not called F4, but we all know what we mean. We get, and of course, by the way, we've got this internationalization thing here, which has not been translated because I've deliberately not included any I18N in what we're doing. It would have got the I18N if we hadn't have used our custom common file, because of course the SAP CDS common also has an I18N folder within it. So there we go, that's why we don't have these translated things, but we get all the different possible values for the currency code the currency name and the currency description. So what we're getting here is the data for the code list. Okay. And we get a ton of requests, I18N style requests for all sorts of different things here. For all these different libraries that are used, layout and metadata based libraries, etc., front end, all these Fiori elements-based libraries to display this actual pop-up. But the most important thing here is the batch request that says get currencies. Can you see that, by the way? Just move that a bit further up so we can see it, and a bit bigger. It's 9 o'clock as well. Get currencies, select code and name. That is coming directly from the directions in the annotation that was in the value list for the currency property. There we go. There we go. So thank you so much for joining, and thank you also for the chat and everything. I hope that was useful. I found it useful for digging in as well. I think there's a lot to discover and a lot to peel back, and I think it's very important that we do that. So have a great weekend, and yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye for now.